It's time for the Ward Scott Files, hosted by John Martin. Join the Salty Dog and his captain, Ted Yoho. Search for the Ward Scott Files on Facebook, Vimeo, and over 30 audio platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Now here's your host, the Salty Dog, John Martin.
Well, good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm truly blessed to be in this good old USA. Well, you're tuned in to the Ward Scott Files, hosted by yours truly, John Martin, and joining us every day is the captain of our pirate ship, as I like to call it, Mr. Ted Yoho.
Yeah, I'm dry docked right now. I'll be back in the water hopefully this afternoon.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, we're going to start out with a story about who I think should be a hero, but man, he is being villainized and tortured.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about none other than Elon Musk. I mean, have you ever seen anything like what he's going through, Ted?
No, but I tell you what, that's a good reflection of what the new, I don't even call them Democrats, the liberal progressives. They're angry. And you talk about the amount of destruction they do. Go back to Antifa and the Black Lives Matter. That's that same mindset. The scary thing is these people are in charge of the Democratic Party that are coming up in leadership. So, yeah, go ahead and roll this. This is a great video.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Bart. But it's about Attorney General Pam Bondi on Thursday announced charges against individuals participating in what she described as domestic terrorism against it. So I'm going to play this short video, and people, you can make your own decision. Does this look like domestic terrorism or what? Check this out.
Here comes the fire department.
I mean, what you're looking at there, Ted, if you hadn't seen that video, is a car dealership in Las Vegas, a Tesla dealership set on fire in Las Vegas. I mean, to me, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. That is terrorism. I don't care how you look at it.
It really is. And here's the party that is the green energy party. It's all about the climate. It's all about all this stuff. Look at the amount of energy that goes into producing a Tesla, you know, the battery, the mining and all that. Look at the toxins that come out of starting one on fire, let alone the danger it puts our firefighters in to put one of those out. Those things are dangerous fires. They can't extinguish them like a regular fire. They can blow up. And it just shows you who these people really are. And these are the ones that want to be in charge. These are the people that want to control the country. They never need to be back in control as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's just amazing how, you know, they'll talk about their right to protest and all this kind of stuff. But the left is just about violence. I'm not saying everybody in the Democratic Party is, but the activists, quote, leftists, are some of the most violent people there are. And think about this, Ted. They're always talking about guns in the wrong hands and stuff like that. They're literally shooting up Tesla dealerships with, I'm assuming, guns.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't think you could use whatever they would use. But again, these are the people, if you go back, remember Richard Spencer? He was one of those political activists on the left side. And they wanted to block him out of the University of Florida from speaking because he was against some things that the left was just really angry about. So they shut it down. And people like him or Ben Shapiro or Candace Owens and some of these conservative speakers would go around the nation and you'd have these violent protests at universities. Again, it's the radical left, the people that have spawned AOC and Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. Those are the people that are in charge, and they want to run this country. And I know you've got a segment about Obama and socialism, and you didn't build that, and I look forward to that.
Absolutely. Well, Attorney General Bondi said the days of committing crimes without consequence have ended. I love that line. The days of committing crimes without consequence has ended. I mean,
well,
that pretty much says it what we need to hear.
Let's hope she can follow through with that. And really what needs to be transmitted throughout our culture is you have to be responsible. There is cause and effect. There's consequences for your action. And let's hope she starts going through and finding the people that are in charge or that did these crimes and then hold them accountable. I think I saw 4 or 5 Teslas on fire in there. That's probably about a $500,000 cost just for the cars, let alone the cleanup and the toxic and all that. Make them do that. And I put a sign on there and have them public shamed out there. That would end this real quickly.
Well, we're also getting reports, Ted, of individual people simply driving their Teslas that are being accosted and attacked, let alone their cars actually vandalized. They're literally threatening people. And I've been hearing reports that people are not driving their Teslas because they're afraid of being attacked.
That's the same. Again, it's so ironic. That's the same group that when I had my excursion, I've got an expedition now, but when I had my excursion, they were attacking excursions, bad for the environment. And they're stabbing the tires, they're putting X's on cars and all that. So now this is the same group. They're mad, and they're mad at Elon Musk. And as you said, that guy ought to be held up as just somebody that's incredible, doing what he has done, with SpaceX, with Tesla, bringing the astronauts home, going through, and everybody's faulting him for doing all these cuts. He's exposing the cuts. And then he turns that over to another agency that goes through and says, we're getting rid of this stuff. He ought to be applauded, and history will make him a hero, because that'll be 10, 15, maybe 50 years before America wakes up and say, you know what they did was a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned it. We should be, of all weeks here, we should be celebrating Elon Musk.
Yeah, really.
He's had an incredible life so far, but what a week, just this past week that he had. You mentioned that he saved those or rescued those astronauts. It was incredible. If people hadn't seen, I think I got a picture of what they call the Crew 9 parachuting into the Gulf of America. The Gulf of America.
Gulf of America. That's got a good right. Gulf of America.
Gulf of America.
That's American ingenuity too.
Yeah, and even nature celebrated it. Did you see that? If you haven't watched that video, I'd encourage people to go check it out. But the dolphins actually came up there in the Gulf of America and greeted our astronauts' return.
Did they really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, you need to check it out. Yeah, a pod of dolphins came and surrounded the capsule and was swimming around it, in effect, welcoming them back home.
Well, bygod.com, that's better than John Wayne riding up and saving the Alamo.
Well, it's on a side note, I've had a lot of experience with dolphins over the years, and they can be a pain when you're trying to fish. But I think they actually know who we are, Ted. I really believe they're that smart. It's a side note, but I've seen so much evidence of it. I would
agree with that. Yeah.
I think they know that we're here. I believe they have a conscious knowledge of who we are.
I think they know we're inferior.
I wouldn't doubt that. They don't eat their own, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
But he not only did he recapture this or rescue these astronauts, but he's keeping the Doge going, right? Keeping that going.
Yep.
And this didn't get much attention, but just last night, they fired off another one of his rockets, to launch a series of spy satellites for the United States of America just last night.
Well, no, you can't say that. You can't tell anybody there's spy satellites.
Well, I guess we can't just put a balloon and let it float across China. We have to actually have.
Only if Biden was in charge.
Can you imagine how long a balloon would last if we were like drifting it over China? Like they did us. I mean, we let it just kind of hang out there. It's just,
I'm just happy those days of Biden and Harris are gone. And I know you're going to lead in with the next possible president of the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah. But before we get that, I want to play a video of, talk about being rescued. The voters rescued us from this guy. But the hatred, that's all I can call it. The hatred of Elon Musk is just irrational and getting out of hand. I don't know if you saw this, Ted, but this is Tim Walz, and this is who, thank God,
to give me a
voters
little boost during
rescued
the
us
day.
from him. That's
what I was referring to.
Yeah, he's talking about. Well, I guess are we playing it now? Go ahead.
You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out. Just telling you. Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone. They've got that little stock app. I added Tesla.
That's Tim Walz, who, thank God, is not the vice president of the United States. But he is at a conference. Now, he's trying to up his stock. I guess maybe he's going to run for president or seeing himself being the new leader. But he literally says and holds up his cell phone there and says that I've got this stock app that shows that, what stock's going up. And I got Tesla on here and it's down, and he's bragging about that. But here's the insane part of that, Ted, okay? Now, I want people in Minnesota. If you're out there in Minnesota, you got friends or family in Minnesota, please lean in and listen to this. Your governor is criticizing one of the most American companies in the United States, Tesla. But check this out. The Minnesota State Board of Investments released a report last year showing the state, this is the state of Minnesota, held 1.6 million shares of Tesla stock in their state retirement fund. And that in other funds, they held over 211,000 shares in other funds. So 1.6 million, but almost 3 million when you put in, almost 2 million when you put in that other figure. And here's your governor saying, well, we want that stock to go down. That is insane. If you're a union worker there, if you're a member of the government union there, how are you feeling about your governor telling you that he wants your retirement funds to drop? It's crazy.
You know how crazy that is? Tesla's down about 200 points. It was up to a high of, I think, 460. It's down to about 260. So 1.6 million shares. If I did the math correctly, I believe it comes out to $3.2 billion they lost in value.
So if you're waking up in Minnesota,
great.
Yeah, Minnesota.
See, that's the typical mindset. That's the mindset and the rationale of a progressive liberal socialist communist.
Well, speaking of governors, can you even imagine Ron DeSantis saying something like that?
No.
Our governor of the great state of Florida. Can you even imagine
look at how the media went after him and they've gone after Elon Musk, and how the media is going after these things. And when DeSantis said, he had that education bill that they all came out and said, don't say gay bill. I read that bill, had nothing to do with that, but the media is our enemy. And that's why they're doing so poorly, and the Democrats are doing so poorly. American people aren't as stupid as they'd like to think they are, and they've they're voting with their feet in their pocketbook.
Well, you mentioned about the media, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this show, Ted. We talk about it all the time. We want to educate people, motivate people, and activate people. So if you're looking for a source to get your news from, this is it right here. Ted Yoho is making news on a daily basis, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But we're glad people are tuning in. Like what we're doing, share what we're doing, spread the word far and wide.
Absolutely.
But, I want to play another video because we saw this video of, we just saw Mr. Walz driving their retirement funds down in the state of Minnesota, insane as that is. But I want to play this video of Donald Trump. And it's kind of connected to Elon Musk. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is delightful. Check this out.
I did.
I mean, my goodness, what that is, in case people don't know, they haven't seen it. It's Donald Trump obviously going out from the White House to Marine One, and that is Elon Musk's son. And there's one point in the video where Donald Trump turns around and does like this. He says that's like little X, you know. I mean, whose side would you rather be on? The happy warrior side, which is Donald Trump, and I feel like you and me are the same way, Ted, or you want to be on the sourpuss side where they're just full of venom? It's just unbelievable.
I tell you, there's a lot of venom spewed out there, guys, and I'll take the Donald Trump side.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm always saying, we need to be warriors, but happy warriors. The left is just absolutely angry, pissed off all the time. I mean, it's like when I used to be a mayor and city commissioner in Hawthorne, there were certain people that would come to the meetings, and I knew what they were against, and that was everything. I could never figure out what they were actually for. You ever dealt with stuff like that, Ted?
Yeah. I had 8 years of that.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And here's the thing. If we continue, and I love what Pam Bondi said about consequences, because Kristi Noem said something very similar in a commercial that she did for as head of Homeland Security. She sent a warning out that if you want to come into this country and obey our laws and be productive, we welcome you. But if you don't, there will be consequences for your actions. And that's what we're seeing from the Trump administration, is consequences for your actions. And I think that is very refreshing and much needed.
Well, it is. And I go back, one of my favorite speeches by Theodore Roosevelt, to America, welcome. Saying this, there's one language, we need to learn it. There's one flag.
I think we may be losing. We lost Ted. But that's a big law. Maybe he'll be able to come back on us. You know how this technology works, so we apologize for that. I tell you what we'll do. We'll take a quick commercial break. We appreciate you tuning in and listening to our sponsors. Please support our sponsors. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, look at the little tagline you'll occasionally see at the bottom of your screen that says Contact Freddie. Let's take a commercial break and see if we can get Ted back.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog.
the steps.
He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. Wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And we're back. And I think we've got Ted on the
are
line. I don't see Ted, are you there?
Yeah, I think I am. Can you hear me?
Okay. I don't see you, but I can hear you. And we'll just keep going. Thank you for tuning back into us, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just tuning in, you're tuned into the Ted Yoho's Pirate Ship, hosted by yours truly, John Martin. And as President Trump said, we're back. This technology, maybe we're being sabotaged by the Democrats. I wouldn't doubt it. Well, I wanted to go into another story here. This comes to you from Politico. I like to use a whole bunch of different resources here. You got to keep in mind. This is the idea of the data is clear. It says Democrats face their own Tea Party revolt. And I had to pull up this picture, Ted. I don't know. I think you remember this, but this is when you and I first started getting to know each other. And it was kind of during the Tea Party revolt.
Boy, it sure was. I remember that picture well.
Yeah, we had both won our primaries that night. Of course, you went on to bigger and better things. And, I succumbed to the blue wave of Alachua County. You were able to overcome that in the other counties. And we got the better deal with you anyway. So, this Tea Party revolt is kind of interesting to me, Ted, that they refer to that, because I get at one level what they're talking about, but I don't see anything that shows me you've got a group of people that are willing to put America first, even before they came up with that slogan like the Tea Party did. I don't see a resemblance in that sense at all.
No, not at all. And if you think about it, that was a grassroots organization. There was no Tea Party leader. It was just people were fed up with government. And that was one of the things that inspired me to run, is that there were so many people out there that were fed up with government and the inaction and the inefficiency of government. And I ran, and that started in 2010. I ran in 2012, got elected, and started serving from 2013 to 2021. And it's taken this amount of time to really have a major change in what's going on in America. And Donald Trump is doing it. He's the change this country needed. He's going through bluntly reforming government. And this is a reform he's doing proactively instead of waiting until the bottom drops out of the market, the currency goes to zero. And those days are not far off from here. And I know you've got a segment, or I talked a little bit about Jerome Powell in my notes I sent you, which is scary because people like him are running the economy. And we'll talk about that when you want to.
Well, we can talk a little bit about it now if you want to, as far as that, because it's all blended together. And you have experience, I think, working with these people more than I do. So go ahead. We'll come back to the Tea Party issue in just a second.
Well, again, it was the Tea Party that led to this whole change. And, Trump is part of that. People wanted that kind of change. And, Jerome Powell was saying the economy was going to have a soft landing and things are looking pretty good. But now there's all this uncertainty with the tariffs and Trump in there. And keep in mind who Jerome Powell is. He's the chairman of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is in charge of our money. It was something in 1913 with Woodrow Wilson, gave a non-elected entity in control of the currency of the United States of America. And Jerome Powell, back right when COVID was starting, I think it was 2019, we had a conference call. Actually, he was in the room, and we were talking to him, and I questioned him about our high debt. And, with the unemployment that was going to happen from the pandemic, that I was worried about the sustainability of our debt and the high interest rates. He goes, "Oh, you don't need to worry about that." He goes, We've got great employment right now. We've got historical low. He goes, our debt is not a problem and servicing the debt is not a problem. I said, right now it's not. But when unemployment shoots up and interest shoots up, it'll get to a point where we can't service our debt. We'll be paying more for interest on our debt than we are militarily. And he goes, no, that won't happen. Now, if a large animal veterinarian can figure that out against a financial educated elite, that kind of makes you worry, or it should be a warning bell that these people that are running things in our government, our monetary system, you got to wonder what is their ultimate plan. And somebody like him, if that was his thinking, along with Janet Yellen, those people should never be in government. It should be a metric or a merit system where the brightest people are put in charge of these things.
Well, Ted, you mentioned something there that really triggered me a little bit when you said that when you're talking about Mr. Powell about our money. See, I don't know that they actually believe that it's our money. It's their money, and that kind of, you have to, in order to understand certain people, like for instance, people used to say to me, bring it back to something local, my good buddy Mike Byerly, I'll just say it like it is. People would say, I just don't understand that guy. And I said, well, it's simple. It's actually very simple. Once you understand that he is opposed to any growth whatsoever, period, everything he does begins to make sense for the fire department and understand. You have to understand people. Like I tell people about Donald Trump, to really understand him, you have to understand that his core, he's a businessman. So he basically believes if you've got money in your pocket, if you got change you can spend, actually, as opposed to what Obama said, then the rest of this stuff you can figure out. But see, the left, I believe they don't believe that. It's not our money, it's their money.
It really is. And I think you brought up Obama, and that drives that point home so well. I think we all remember that he said that, you didn't make the success. It was the government that made the success. It wasn't from your work. It was from the work of others that have done the infrastructure that allowed you to be successful. And he also is the guy that said nobody ever needs to make more than $250,000 a year. You talk about a hypocrite. Here's a guy that has 3 or 4 homes worth probably tens of 20s of maybe even over $100 million. And a guy that was telling us, the peons, the American taxpayers that funds all this stuff, nobody needs to make over $250,000. I didn't see him not taking his paycheck like Trump. And that's a contrast. Excuse me. Trump wants to keep money in your pocket. People like Obama and the progressive left want to take money out of your pocket and keep it in the coffers of the federal government. And I can look over my money a lot better than they can.
Well, and you mentioned Obama again, and I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but might as well talk about it now. That the whole thing back with Tesla, for instance, and destroying the cars and all that kind of stuff, it all goes back to this climate change thing, which tells me they don't really believe in this climate stuff, because if the climate, and I'll give you a couple examples, Alexandria Ocasio said we all should be dead by now, right? According to her. But if climate change was this what do they call it, existential threat or whatever that's going to destroy planet Earth, then shouldn't that be the top priority, period, right? It should be the top priority. But they're attacking Elon Musk, who is the king of electric cars and innovation. And you mentioned Obama and his homes. Well, where did Obama build his mansion? Right on the beach. So, I mean, if he really believed that the tidal wave, you think he'd build it right on the beach? These people are so full of it; it's unbelievable.
The whole climate change argument, without getting too depth or making anybody mad, I think we should focus more on adaptation. Because if everything's going to go the way some of those people are predicting, and of course I subscribe to that other train of thought. We should be focusing on adaptation. Maybe don't build so close to the coast. Build in higher grounds. That whole ideology has been taken over, and it's become a religion of the progressives. As long as it fulfills their needs or suits their needs, they're going to harp on that.
But it's so interesting to me, and I know we're jumping around quite a bit here, but
yeah, we are.
It's interesting to me how they worry about certain things, but then their actions show they don't. Like we're just talking about climate change. Their actions really show that they don't believe it, what they're saying. And then if you look, for instance, talk about the border and stuff, you know, what was the one thing they used to tell us all the time about abortion and everything else? We need population control, right? We're overpopulating the country. We're spreading out. We're sprawling, all that kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden we get this massive migrations of tens of millions of people coming here that are literally not only, I mean, if you look at the trash that they leave behind, and not even mentioning the crime and all that stuff, but they don't talk about overpopulation. When's the last time you heard someone on the left mention overpopulation or ending wars? When's the last time they ever said anything like that? I mean,
only when it comes down to,
think about it.
Well, it all comes down to the you got to take care of the disadvantage. You know, they've been disadvantaged because of the policies of the patriarch, the white patriarch. You know, the climate change is affecting poor people worse, they say, and I'm like, how can that be? You know, the climate is changing constantly. You know, I can show you a piece of coral in the Keys, not far from my house. That's about 3 feet out of the water at high tide. That tells me it was probably underwater 3 feet, at least 3 feet underwater for coral to grow. And, you know, it's going to continue to change, but they politicize it and they make it their idol, you know, for that period of time, as long as it suits their need. And, you know, you're talking about the population control. You only hear about it when it's affecting the disadvantage. You know, it's the disadvantage or this. If they had the money, they wouldn't have all these children. And it's craziness. It's nonsense. And this is one of the things Trump is doing when he gutted USAID, which I never thought they would be able to get rid of aid. There is going to be a form of that coming back, and that's the podcast I'm going to do at 10 o'clock. I'm going to leave about 5 minutes early, and I can report back on that. But that whole thing with the aid is going to go away. Trump is the only one able to do that. And he's going to go systematically through these programs. And you've seen what he's done with education right now. He is systematically gutting that. And I wrote a paper that he's doing. He didn't follow my paper, obviously, but it was along the same lines. It was called The Devolution of the Federal Government. Give back to the states that which they should be doing, and take away from the federal government that which they shouldn't be, so that they go back to their basic function. And, you know, it's exciting to see him doing that. And I wrote about that, I think it was 2013, 2014. And I had sent it to my chief of staff at that time. And we talked about that. And some of our policies were that the Development Finance Corporation, which is one of the programs they're keeping under foreign assistance, because it's to move countries from aid to trade. You know, it's just kind of neat because we were on that same mindset back then. And so I know there's a whole group of people that want to do that. And it's happening right now. So it's exciting.
Well, you mentioned about the government and all. We talked a little about this on Monday show. By the way, if you're just tuning into us, we're live every Monday and Friday. We're going to be expanding and doing more shows in the near future. But you can see us on your favorite Facebook channels like the Ward Scott Files. I think it's now being broadcast over two of my Facebook sites, John Martin Talks and Media Measures Global, as well as on YouTube under Ward Scott Podcast, and wherever you see your favorite podcast, you can tune in. But, you know, we talked about this a little bit on Monday's show, but when you were talking, it kind of triggered it into me again, that this idea that the government is only for the elites. And that I remember we were talking about Elon Musk a little while ago, but that was it. Michael Steele, is that his name? He used to be chair of the Republican Party. He actually said on MSNBC last week that Elon Musk should go back to rockets and leave the governing to us. And God help us if that's really what we do. That, Ted, in my opinion, is our problem. You heard me say this before. We need to take the government back from our own ignorance and apathy, our own ignorance of how special this, and it really is an experiment, United States of America, and the apathy
really
that we can or won't do anything to save it. It's us that's got to change.
It is. And the way you change that is by sending different type of people up there and, get people that are running for a cause, not for a position, not that want to go around and tell you how important they are. We've got a guy running for, I'm not going to mention his name or the seat, but I heard him say, I don't really need to go around and knock on doors and politic, and I don't live in the district, and just real arrogant. And I'm like, is this guy really running to serve the district he's representing? Or is he running just because he thinks it's a good gig? I don't know. I don't have any respect for those people.
Yeah, and well, if I could give people advice around the country, it is to search out, find someone like my friend here, Ted Yoho, and support that person. We need more Ted Yohos and people with your attitude in Congress, Ted. Absolutely.
You're going to run a lot of people away from the show saying that, John. Well, they're probably not listening anyway. They're not listening anyway.
Back on this thing with trying to find, is there a Tea Party revolt within the Democratic Party? This is from Politico. It says here, as Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer knows better, this is Politico's words, not me, better than anyone, the Democratic base is pissed off, and not just a little. So listen to, it says the intensity of anger roiling the party is talking about the Democratic Party is at historic level, and they talk about a breach. Well, I want to play a little snippet from The View. This is Chuck Schumer on The View this week, in a sense, defending himself. But I'm just playing this small snippet where he's talking about the Republican Party and what has become and the difference between it and basically him and his party. Check this out.
Used to be. And that's why we're fighting them so hard. They are controlled by a small group of wealthy, greedy people. And you know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers, my the land and water that I own, or my employees? They hate government. Government's a barrier to people.
And it's just like I said earlier, Ted, that right there says all you really, it's their money. It's not our money. It's their money. And how dare you question how we spend our money? Because it's not yours. I mean, it's the government's money.
You notice how he was going on and doing the fear tactics. If the government shuts down, it's going to be Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Doge are going to decide what programs to bring back and which ones to cut. And he did that 2 or 3 times in that segment. And it's just fear mongering. Keep in mind, when they were in charge, the nasty things they did, the weaponization of the federal government, of the judiciary, of the AG, ran through Obamacare with no input from Republicans whatsoever. The green climate deal. Going back to that, you were talking about some of the things in that climate fund, and I'm getting a little aside here. There was money that Lee Zeldin found that was $20 billion in just projects that didn't need to happen. Some of those were going in there teaching farmers how to farm in New York. Now, I think farmers that have invested and they have a farm and they maybe had it for generations, they probably know how to farm, but they were using this climate fund to help educate them on how to farm. So what it tells me is there's just a bunch of mission creep, and it's a bunch of payoffs to people and groups that were supporting their agenda. It is going to end, and it's ending now. And I'm just excited about what's going on. And the American people ought to be too. It's messy right now, but it's going to be a lot better when we get done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, I don't know the details of it, but I'll just throw this out there. I saw a little headline when I was researching for the show this morning that, that Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, has found or canceled like $480 million in contracts and grants and things from the Department of Defense. Like I say, I really don't know the details, but they're looking at everything. They're looking at
And there's a
everything.
lot of redundancy in those programs. They'll have a manager that has a manager that has a manager, and they're all doing the same thing because nobody wants. And you've heard me say this. No, there's an aversion to making a decision. I had somebody here from the military over the weekend we were talking to, and it's always a chain of command that here, solve this problem. They send it to the person under them and solve the problem because nobody wants to make the decision because you know what? By God, they might have to be held accountable. And just make the decision. And if it doesn't work out, change your tactics. And that I hope that ends, but I hope Trump can encourage Congress to put in enough legislation so that it doesn't go back and that there's constant review. And of course, that best constant review is us. The voters.
Yeah, we have to take responsibility because my dad used to say all the time, we get the government we deserve. And sometimes that's pretty frightening. But back to this.
Sid was a smart man.
He was. I hope some of it rubbed off on me. But we're talking about, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about this idea in Politico that there's a Tea Party movement possibly bubbling up within the Democratic Party. But listen to these poll numbers, Ted.
John, that wouldn't be a Tea Party. That would be a latte or something like that.
Yeah, it's bubbling up, but it's pretty smelly. But the Quinnipiac University annual, what they call first quarter congressional polling, reveals that this is just for Democrats, that 40% of Democrats approve of the job performance of their Congress members. Just 40%. 49% disapprove. Think about that. This is just Democrats. Now, we're not talking about the American people in general, but half of the Democrats disapprove of their members, not Congress in general, but their members in Congress. That's pretty amazing.
It is. It is.
I don't blame them. Maybe it shows they're smarter than we think.
It just amazes me. And then you get people like, what do you say? The knucklehead, Tim Walz, he called himself a knucklehead. He's out there talking that nonsense. He's on his presidential exploratory tour to see what it is and what the results of that are going to be. And what he's doing is he's just talking about all the things they hate, and he's getting applauses, but it's not fixing anything, and it's not leadership. It's not saying, "Oh, I want that guy to lead my country."
Well, that reminds me of something, a service. I'll give myself a little pat on the back, a service that I do for people so they don't have to. I watch all kind of stuff. I watch, like, for instance, some of Gavin Newsom's podcasts. Now, that's torturous to watch, but he had Tim Walz on there the other day. And I mean, even Gavin Newsom, you could tell by his body language, he always sits there and does like this. But he's like, this guy's crazy. You could just tell you're a nut because he was unhinged on that thing. I mean, the more we see him on camera, the better it is. But think about this, Ted. I'm getting back to this polling. 75%, just to show you the difference between now. So only half the Democrats don't approve of their own members of Congress. Well, this time last year, 75% of the Democrats approve compared to just 21% disapprove. So it's very different now. Democratic base of disillusionment runs so deep, and this is what Politico says, eerily reminiscent of Republican sentiment leading up to Donald Trump's takeover of the Republican Party. Now, I would ask you, Ted, who is their Donald Trump? If this is a grassroots movement, who would be their Donald Trump? And I pose this question to you specifically. Could it be your old pal, Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Could she be their version of Donald Trump? I mean, there you go, Ted. There's your colleague right there.
One could only hope. Do you have that picture you can flash real quick?
I think it just posted up there.
All right. If that picture showed the burro, the donkey, and AOC. I've seen that before. My comment was, well, only one of those knows they're the real ass. The other one is Pluto.
Or like my old uncle used to say, from a hole in the ground. But when I was looking at that picture again, I was thinking about that maybe that's why you and her had such a close connection, Ted, is because she really is kind of a JA, and you know a little bit about donkeys, mules, and horses and cows. So maybe you actually didn't know it, but you felt sorry for her because she's the north end of a southbound mule, that's for sure. Just a thought. I have these random thoughts.
No, I was just questioning her of why she was asking people or telling her constituents that it's okay to steal bread, and we're going to defund the police. All these other crazy things she was saying. And it was the last thing I had to ask her. I says, did you really mean to tell people it's okay to shoplift bread? And that it went south from there.
Yeah, they're looking for bread. Well, there's that famous shot of her during Trump's first administration where she's outside the fences that Obama built at the detention centers, and she's crying about the immigrants, and she's saying that they are drinking out of toilets, which was ridiculous. The water comes out of the same place, but they were toilet. But I don't know if you saw this, and we're not going to show it, but just in her district this week, there's a video of one of her constituents eating a rat on the street, a raw rat. And I mean, maybe she should be paying attention to what's happening in her own backyard. It's just crazy.
I guess those are the people that are voting for her, I guess. I don't know. Again, her values, I guess they must appeal to the people in her district, but they're not American values. And I hope she runs for president, some other office where she'll be voted out and we won't ever see her again, because what she's espousing will not work in America. I'm sure she was taught, she just didn't learn of what the values of America is and why America is special. It's the land of opportunity, and it's the opportunity that we have in this country that comes from the Constitution, comes from the rule of law, that comes from the respect for the law, that really allow people to achieve the American dream. There's other countries that have that, but not to the extent as America. And she doesn't understand that. People got ahead because of slavery and all this other stuff, and the white patriarch that she keeps talking about, misogyny. There's another word called misandry. And it's exactly what she and the left are espousing, the people on The View, and that's for a hatred of white men. And they are poster childs for that. But we don't go around and bash them for that. We just understand what they have, and we move on. We just live life and do the best we can.
Well, she's on kind of a tour right now with none other than Bernie Sanders. So I guess that's the new leadership of the Democratic Party. But people don't realize the main reason why, and forget about elections and fraud and all that, just to make a point, the only reason that Joe Biden got elected president is because the Democrats were scared to death that Bernie was going to win. And so they propelled him to the front. I mean, that's just
they were afraid of Bernie because he had, feel the burn. Everybody, he had the movement going with him that really would have thrown this thing into a socialist country where the Democrats were taking us. But he wasn't somebody the Democratic Party could control. The elites, the Obamas, couldn't control him. And so that's why they ousted him. And can you imagine AOC and Bernie Sanders running this country? The thing, I know you heard that. It may
have been anyway with Biden in there.
And I know you heard Bernie Sanders on one of the talk shows. I just saw the clip of it where he was saying that he has feared more for his country than he ever has with Donald Trump in there and Elon Musk. And I'm like, seriously? You weren't afraid of the way we were going with Biden, a guy that was incompetent, not capable of signing his own executive orders, but you felt more secure in America with all the migrants in here and with all the crime, with the breakdown of the justice system, and the threats that are going on with Russia, China, Iran, and throw in Maduro in there out of Venezuela, and you're saying and the debt, but you're more secure with that than you are Donald Trump coming in here revamping government.
Well, you know, if you think about it, Ted,
hopefully
he might actually be telling the truth.
He won't be able to run.
He might actually be speaking truth, is what he believes, because the country that he envisions is not the direction that Donald Trump is taking us. Donald Trump is taking us back to our constitutional republic, or at least he's trying to. And that probably terrifies somebody like Bernie. So maybe he really is more fearful of Donald Trump because he doesn't want the America that people who supported Donald Trump want. He wants the America that is, you know, a socialist country. I mean, that maybe he's
right. He doesn't want a government. He doesn't want a government for the people. He wants a government by the government that the people serve. I've got to jump off at 9:55, and next Monday I'll be in DC broadcasting to you.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us real quick what you're going to be doing on over today and tomorrow and Monday.
Well, today there's an organization called CSIS. It's Conservative Study Institute, and they talk about different policies. The one today is on foreign assistance. You know, everybody's up in a disarray and discombobulated because Trump came through and axed that. But there are programs that are going to come back, and it's how do we get the good programs back? You know, there were some really good programs that got nixed, and what the government's going to focus on is they're going to revamp USAID into the Institute of Humanitarian Assistance. So it won't be called USAID. And they're going to focus just on humanitarian assistance. They're going to focus on safety, or national health care, global health care, global health security, and food security. And then there's going to be the infrastructure side of building infrastructure in these areas that we want to create an economy, to decrease migration, and to grow economies so that we can trade back and forth. So we'll create allies out of that, and we'll create trading partners. It'll be good for our producers here, whether it's agriculture or manufacturing. And you're going to see a rise in manufacturing come back to this country through tax incentives and other incentives that'll push them out of China. And so that's today. And then Monday is another organization. It's called the One Campaign. It's a very liberal campaign. And they're going through just gnashing of teeth and turning of heads. And I was invited to talk about where do we go from here? And it's going to be pretty matter of fact. You know, my whole thing on foreign assistance, and the reason we created that organization called the Development Finance Corporation, was to move countries from aid to trade. We want to get you off of aid, and that organization lends money and we get paid back. And it's a kind of a novel concept in government assistance, because we're not giving money out as grants from the American taxpayers. So that'll be Monday, and they're all anxious. But it's just kind of funny because I've been talking about there is going to be a reset in government in these programs. You guys need to prepare for it. And I said that probably in 2014 and 2015, and it was so funny because when I said it, they are like, "Oh my God, you know, you can't." Well, here it is. We warned you, so it's going to be kind of funny.
Well, I know I speak.
I'll enjoy it
when I tell you, Ted. We appreciated your service in Congress, and we really appreciate your continued service. And it's just a pleasure hosting the show. So have safe travels, sir. And you'll probably be.
I'm going to sign off
remotely in Monday morning. So take care, and wish you all the best.
And we're going to talk about the win. We're going to talk about the win of the Florida basketball players. And I'm going to sign off so you can talk about that.
Yeah, go Gators.
Talk to everybody later.
Go Gators.
Thanks for listening.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
Well, we appreciate, like I said, Ted's public service, which he continues to do. But I wanted to kind of close out the show with this. I want to explain to people, at least from my perspective, what the Democratic strategy is for governing. And it's kind of collapsing now. So the Democrat strategy has always been to break up groups that what I would call disparaging groups, groups that wouldn't normally associate. And one quick example would be like, say, black Christian conservatives, because black Christians, by and large, African-American Christians are extremely conservative people. Yet they tend to vote Democratic, right? And they tend to vote for groups that are very pro-abortion, which is not something that the black Christian conservatives normally would do. And they tend to vote for the Alphabet City group, the LGBT. So this is what they do. They break these groups up into individual things, get them really pissed off, so that for black people, they say Trump is a racist. Trump is a racist. For LGBT, you know, Trump is homophobic and he's racist against that, and he's against immigrants, and he's against all this stuff. And so they break them up into different groups, and then what their secret is to unify them behind what I would call a common boogeyman. In other words, they splinter them apart, put up this boogeyman. In this case, it was Donald Trump all this time, and this is what they unify. Now, this worked for them to a certain extent in 2020, but it doesn't seem to be working for him now because Donald Trump is just being real. He's being honest. He's telling you how he feels about things, and people are listening, and his poll results are going up. His approval is going up. So that's what the Democrat does. They piss everybody off, splinter them into these groups, and then unify them with a common boogeyman. But that is no longer appears to be working. So let me just look here. I got a couple of other things on my list here. We only got a minute or two left. And let me just see this. Okay. So another warning shot out here to people. Representative Luna, a Republican down in Miami area, she was on a TV show yesterday, and she warned that if the House, and I don't think this is an if, I think she's 100% right, if the House were to flip back to the Democrats, they're going to impeach Donald Trump. They're going to try to impeach Donald Trump. So I think we need to understand that. And I'll close out the show with this one last thing. Coming up in April, now I know we got at least 2 or 3 in the state of Florida, but there's one in New York. There are a series of special elections to fill congressional seats, mainly congressional seats that are Republicans, have Republicans that Donald Trump appointed to various levels of his cabinet and his administration. I know, for instance, that there's 2 in the state of Florida right now that are coming up in April. If you want to send a strong man, now I expect, and I'm going to speak for Florida's part, I believe that the Republicans will win handily. You never know, but I do believe. But if you want to send a message that you support the president's agenda and what's happening here, a clear clarion message, then you need to turn out in those special elections and vote overwhelmingly for the Republican candidate and send a message, a clear message that you are supporting the Trump agenda, because that's the message that needs to get out there. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go and support our sponsors. As I say, if you'd like to be a sponsor, contact Freddie, the little moniker you'll see down on our broadcast. Please like what we're doing, share what we're doing, comment on what we're doing, and I or Ted will respond to you as quickly as possible. Have a blessed weekend. Over and out. Peace.